So, everyone mute yourself, please. Good morning. We're on page Lamed. Let's do from Lamed Hey, the last two words on the bottom after the period. But just to recap, in this chapter, the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, addresses the issue if a person has inappropriate, lustful thoughts and the like coming to him while he's davening or while he's learning. What should you do? To say that we should embrace them and then reject them is against halacha, is against Jewish law. It's wrong. In middle of davening, in the middle of learning, you're not allowed to think about inappropriate things. So the solution that the Baal HaTanya gave to such thoughts entering a person while they're working or while they're walking in the street like Yoni, and imagine something comes to him now and he just pushes it aside. He says, okay, now I'm going to push you aside. But he lets it enter his mind in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Lo Sasuru Achri Vavchem V'Achri Anechem. If you don't have the thought in your mind, you can't fulfill that mitzvah, right? Avram, when it says, do not follow the dictates and desires of your heart and your eyes. If they're not in your heart and it didn't begin through your eyes, then they're not in you. So how can you fulfill that passage, that verse, that pasuk? So therefore the Alter Rebbe says, when they come to you in the middle of work, you're only working, you're not learning, then you're allowed to kind of allow them to enter. They enter. By the way, it's not that you allow them to enter, they enter. And what you do is you reject them. But here in chapter 28, we're on a different trajectory. Here we're talking about in the middle of davening and learning. So here you're not allowed to let them enter. And as soon as they enter, you don't say, stay a minute longer so I can reject you. You say, I don't want you here for a minute. You're not allowed to be here. I'm davening, I'm learning. So what's the solution if they still enter your mind when you're davening and learning? So here the Alter Rebbe says that what you need to do is reject them out of hand. Yasiach das legamli. Divert your attention from it completely. Then he says later that the reason why they come to you is not because this proves that your davening and learning is worthless. Because if you're really davening and if you're really learning, how is it that they come to you? You're refining yourself. How is it? So the Alter Rebbe says that would be true. That's what we're going to learn today. That would be true if there's only one soul. If a person has one soul, then there would be a contradiction, an oxymoron. Who are you? Esau, or Yaakov? Make up your mind. But if there are two people, they're twins in the mother's womb, and one is Esau, and one is Yaakov, one desires to go to church, and one desires to go to shul, it's natural that there's going to be a battle. And guess what? When one strengthens himself, the other one tries to overpower. So when your godly soul wants to be more godly and more holy through davening and learning, the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh Habamis, the animal drive, strengthens itself to block you and put obstacles in front of you and to make it more difficult for you. So as long as you know that it's coming from the second soul within the Jewish person, i.e. the Nefesh Habamis, as we learned in chapter 1 in Tanya, that every Jew possesses the Nefesh Habamis, and in chapter 2, she possesses a Nefesh Elikis, both souls. It's all clear. And I call this is not, a spiritual schizophrenia, a split personality. Make up your mind. Are you holy or are you secular? Are you Jewish or not? So let's learn inside. So the Alter Rebbe, that was the Nakuda that he said, that when things get tough, Avram, it's the time not to get weak and to chicken out, to cop out and to give up. On the contrary, it's the time to get stronger. When
the going gets tough.
When the going gets tough. Exactly. You want to knock me down? I'm going to show you who's going to knock who down. So the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh Habamis, comes to the person that says, here's a nice little inappropriate thought, a lustful thought. So, but I'm in the middle of davening. I'm in the middle of learning. Says the Alter Rebbe, exactly. That's when he wants to plant it into your mind, not when you're playing baseball or going to a movie or sitting on the beach. At that time, big deal. And at that time, he knows you're going to reject it. You're going to embrace it for a moment and then reject it. But here, you're not allowed to embrace it. So he says, I'm going to keep on shoving it into you, throwing it into the person's mind. And at that time, you get stronger and you say, get out of here. Go find another place. You know, my grandmother, who was a survivor, she'd always say, when we had a bad dream, I don't know if you heard this from your grandparents or people, when we had a bad dream, we woke up in the morning, very scary, she would say, say that God should throw all your dreams on the bad goyim. Not that all goyim were bad, but those goyim, those Gentiles who seek to hurt us, let those bad dreams go and bother them and attach themselves to them. I'm not saying that should be the way we should educate our children today either. I'm not going to go into that discussion because that's a very European approach after being persecuted. But the concept is that we need to reject it out of hand and know that we have the strength to do so. So now let's learn inside the end of Lamed Hey, the last two words. Now we're on top of 70. The truth would be like the people who argue that if an inappropriate thought comes to you, it shows that your Jewishness isn't sincere, your davening is really meek and schwach and weak. Says the Alter Rebbe, that would be true im hoisa nafshay achas levada, if a person were to have if a Jew were to have only one soul, and levada, and he amispaleles, and it's that same very soul that davens, that prays, v'hi amachsheves umahareres hamachshava zoris, and it's that very same soul that thinks that allows the inappropriate thought, the lustful thought to enter and thinks about it. Then you could say you're a hypocrite. You have schizophrenia. Make up who you are. Avo be'emes lamitai, but the truth is, what's going on is there's a battle between the two souls within the Jew. It's waging war in man's mind. Each seeks to dominate, to control, so that it fills it and only it fills the mind. Now you notice he says the mind, he's not even talking about the heart. The lustful thought becomes lustful when you understand what it's about. Sure, it begins with seeing, you see something, but then you think about it, you understand it. And when you think and understand it, which is in the mayach, in the mind, then it impacts the heart, and then it impacts the action. Says the Alter Rebbe, each of the two souls seek to control its dominance over the mind. V'chol hirhuri Torah v'yirah shamayim, and all thoughts of Torah study and fear of God, awe of God, minefesh alikiyas, comes from the godly side of the person. V'chol milad alma, and all worldly matters comes minefesh habamis, from the animal drive. Rak shalikus melubish ba. It's only that godliness invests itself as well into the animal drive to harness it and control it. But the navigator. The navigator and the lead role is, in this case, the Nefesh Habamis, who wants to be more animal-like. Now the Alter Rebbe gives a parable to this. Listen to this parable. This would be similar to a person hamispalel b'kavana, that davens with intent, with focus, with kavana. Rasha, and there stands before him an idol worshiper, a wicked person, and he speaks and he talks with him for the purpose kedei levalvaloi, to confuse him. You're standing and you're davening, and all of a sudden, someone who doesn't believe in God, who's an idol worshiper, or is wicked, and he starts, we say in Yiddish, he'll drain you a cup. Drain means like the make circles around you, and tries to mess up your head, mess with your head. This and that and this, and find all kinds of justifications for the rishis, for the nonsense and the wickedness. Haki achaynik. But it's haki you achaynik, Yoini, in a clever way. It's not just, he says, hey, come, let's go do a good sin. He starts saying, this is great, and the Torah didn't mean this exactly, and maybe we can do it this way, we can do it that way, And why is he doing that? You're in the middle of davening. Avram, you're standing there, you're davening to Hashem. This Ovid Galilim Rasha, this idol worshiper, this wicked person, sees you praying. Why would he have the audacity to come to you in the middle of prayer and disturb you? The answer is kedei levalvuli. There's one purpose, in order to confuse you and mess with you. Says the Alter Rebbe, what is the advice to this problem? Bevada, surely it's not to answer him, whether from good to bad, but in other words, to debate with him. Don't do that. Rather, make believe you're deaf and you don't hear him at all. Thereby fulfilling the verse, quote, Altan, ksil bivaltoi. Do not respond to a fool in his foolishness and badness and evilness. Why not? Pen tishveloi. Because by doing that, you might become like him. He sucks you in through engaging in a debate. Gam ato, also you, kach. So by the word gam begins the parable, the moral. Gam ato kach, so you too, the person who is davening and learning. And there enters in your mind a lustful thought. Al yoshev me'uma. Don't respond at all. Don't debate. V'shum taimo mayna neged ha'machshava zara. Don't try to find any argument, any position, any response against this foreign lustful thought that comes to you. Now this line, the next few words, is great. Ki ha'mesabik im nuvu. Misnavel gamkein. For one who wrangles, one who wrestles with a disgusting person or a disgusting thing, misnavel gamkein, he himself, she herself becomes dirty. You understand? When you engage in debate, even if you win the debate, you become dirty. Moshe, do me a favor, please mute yourself. You understand?
Sorry, what?
Mute yourself. Thank you. When a person engages in a debate, in a response, you say this, I say this, I'll show you. And even if you win, you hear this? Even if you win, you end up soiled. Look at the words. I want you to see those words. Ki hamesabek Immanuvel. Someone who wrangles, who wrestles with disgust. Menuvel means disgust. Deplorable, with someone or something that's deplorable. Misnavel gamkein, becomes herself disgusting. You can't go into a dirty hole, a pit, and fight someone there and come out clean. You're in a pit. You're in schmutz. And when you're in schmutz, you're going to get what we call in Yiddish, schmutzig, dirty. But I won. I overpowered. I outsmarted him. I showed him that he's really outrageous. You're right. But some of that ends up on you. Let's continue. What should you do? One second. No, wait. You wait, please. Let me first continue, please. Please make yourself, what should you do? Pretend. Here, look at the words. Yase atzmai. Make yourself kilo yodeya. Kilo yodeya means as though you don't know, velo shomeya, and you didn't hear hahihurim, those lustful thoughts shenaflu loy that entered your mind, v'yasira midaitai, and avert them from your mind. The Yosef Oimitz B'koyach, and add strength, B'koyach kavanose, with your entire focus while you're davening, and that will help you. So, in other words, when a thought comes to you, and I want to say it's that one slight second or 2 seconds. It's either at that time when you say, okay, what am I? I'm going to outsmart you. I'm going to shove you out of here and blah, 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 blah. Or you say, you don't say anything. You just go on. You understand? That's what he says. Make believe, kilosh yodeya uv'shomeya, as though you never knew. But 1 second, the thought came to you. Don't think about that the thought came to you. By thinking about it, the thought came. What'd you say?
Hear no evil, see no evil.
Yeah, no. By bringing that to your mind, you're already been caught by the thought. We know the thought came to you. You're davening at the chaynin, shiva sheftenu, and all the tefillahs, and all of a sudden something comes, and you're like, well, we know. Just go on. Just go on. Entertaining it for a moment is already. You lost. You lost. Why did you lose? Because it says, aha, I can get in and I can get him to say, ooh, I'm not so holy, I'm not so good, and all that. Let's continue for a second. A few more lines. The im yikshelei, the Alter Rebbe is very real, Yaini. And he says, what if it's difficult for you? Lahasida midaitai, to remove these thoughts from your mind, because they really are troublesome and bothersome. They're really very strong and bothersome. The Alter Rebbe says, you know what you should do? Oz yashpil nafshay. Make yourself humble. Lower your soul. In other words, make yourself humble. LaHashem. In other words, go into a mode of subservience. V'yischanen. You know what yischanen means? Plead. Please Hashem. All your thought. Hashem, please, have lerachim olav, have mercy on me. Berachim of hamerubim, you have such abundant mercy. Kerachim of albonim, just as a father has mercy over his children. Hanim shochim imoichai, which come from his brain, as we learned earlier in chapter 2. So we ask Hashem to have mercy. You ask Hashem to have mercy on your soul. Which comes from God, the essence of God, as we learned earlier in Tanya. To save me from the evil waters. Stop. And for God's benefit, Yasa, God will do this for you, because a part of God is, his nation is an actual part of God. There's another way of explaining these last words, Ulumanoi, that it's not referring to God, it's the Alter Rebbe is saying kind of his own blessing. But regardless, what are we learning here at the end? A very powerful and important thing. What we're learning here is, at the end, the Alter Rebbe understands human psychology. The Alter Rebbe understands that there are times, and maybe more than less, that this idea of the initial suggestion, don't entertain it, and divert your thought, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You don't have the koyach to make that happen. So the Alter Rebbe says, it's at that moment, Avram, that you need to you need to humble yourself and plead. He says the word v'yischanein. Plead to Hashem. Hashem, please have mercy on my soul. I don't want my soul to have this contamination. I've had enough of it. I've had enough of it. And this is something that we should do throughout our lifetime, to the last day on earth. No man, no woman, no person is strong enough to engage the Yetzer Hara. There are people who've tried it and they've failed badly. Not just 1,000 years ago and 500 years ago, but a day ago, a year ago. And this is humanity. The way the human condition is created by Hashem is that there's a war and a challenge happening, and the purpose is to overcome. So if you have the koyach to overcome it by rejecting it, God bless you, gewaldig. So when you're in the middle of davening and learning and the thought comes to you, so you say, hey, thought buddy, this is not the time. I'm davening and learning. Get out of here. And then it comes back again. It comes back again. And you see, you can't get rid of it. It's like nonstop. What am I supposed to do? V'yischanein. Mashpil nafshay. Humble yourself. Yeah. I'm Hashem. I'm a little person. I'm no one special. It's nothing. Have mercy on me. I want to daven. I want to learn. And when you daven, and when you ask Hashem, and the Alter Rebbe says it, Hashem is rachmim merubim, abundant of mercy. They tell the story of Reb Nachman of Breslev and the Alter Rebbe. You know, the Reb Nachman of Breslev met the Alter Rebbe several times. One of the times when he met him, he heard the Alter Rebbe interpret a verse in Tehillim, Kapitel Kuf Yuf Tes, Berachamecho horabim Hashem. And David HaMelech says, Hashem, with your great mercy, do this and that. And the Balatanya interpreted that verse, Berachamecho horabim, excuse me, Berachamecho horabim Hashem, upon you, God, is a big mercy. Sagreis Rachmanis Avdir. It's in Yiddish. Reb Nachman freaked out. How can you say that about God? God, you know, it's such a pity on you because of what you do to us. And Reb Nachman heard the Balatanya say that. So then Reb Nachman said to his Hasidim and to others, if it weren't the Balatanya who said that, I would excommunicate him. But knowing that it was the Balatanya who said it, I know that it came from the right place. I don't necessarily, I'm paraphrasing now, I don't necessarily understand it or maybe even agree with that, saying such words, again, but if he said it, it's kosher. And if I may say, just to explain what the Alter Rebbe was saying, was along the lines of what he's saying here in Tanya at the end of chapter 28. There is, Yoini, you know, it's such a rachmanis on you, God. What you're doing to us, wow, God, man, you know, like, are you out of your mind? What are you doing to us? That's one attitude. That's not what the Baal Tanya meant. What the Alter Rebbe meant is that there's a midah of rachamim. There's an aspect of mercy that's so powerful that only God knows how special that mercy is. Why? Hillel, why? Because we human beings, right? Someone does something to us and says, please forgive us. Okay, I forgive you. Does a second time, says, please forgive me. A second time. A third time, you say, hey, fellow, you don't mean it. Come back in a year when you change, when you work on yourself. Why is that? Because we are not the abundance of mercy. We don't have an abundance of mercy. We have a limited amount of mercy. Okay? So that's why David HaMelech says in Tehillim, the Alter Rebbe interprets, and that the mercy that we're looking for is God's mercy. God is infinite. Hashem is infinite. Hashem doesn't get burnt out from us nudges asking him, please forgive us, we do tshuva and have mercy on us, and then we do it another 25 times. Only someone who's limited in their mercy feels that way, which is the human condition. That's why we appeal to Hashem. You are the abundance of mercy, Barachamecha Rabim Hashem. Upon you, God, it's a big Rahmanis, meaning you have, this is my interpretation. What I'm telling you now is my interpretation. I'm interpreting what the Alter Rebbe meant. Based on what it says in Chassidus, I think this would be a proper interpretation. Upon you, God, is mercy because you understand mercy. You understand mercy, so therefore use your mercy to help us. And if you don't, where's your mercy? You're God. You're not a human. You're not human. You're not conditioned. So it's us that we come in with a mercy that's limited, so we can't give limitless mercy. But you can, because you're the Father of mercy. You're the creator of mercy. Since you're the creator of mercy, bestow it upon us. Yoini, you wanted to say something? You have your chance now.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Yeah, Rabbi. So the thing is, the Alter Rebbe talks about this thing that you're not supposed to immerse yourself in a sewage pit, right? So you don't go to like the priestess and the prust, the place, right? But you go any place in the world, in the most priestess place, like, you know, India or Thailand, and you have the Chabad Hasidim with the huge Chabad house. In the middle, you have all the Getchkis and all the Buddhists and all the perversions. Mamish, like it is the sewage pit. Like you go to India, all these places, it's Mamish Getchkis all over. It's like the worst kind of tumah.
Okay.
So how is this possible?
Okay, well, your opening statement and assumption is incorrect. So therefore, the question is not a question. It's a question based on an error. Let me tell you what your error is, the way I hear it. The Alter Rebbe is talking to us in this Pedic that when we learn in Davin, not going to 47th Street and Broadway, and not going to the idolatry in the ashrams in India. He's not talking about that. He's talking about when I'm learning and when I'm davening, and a thought comes to me. He's not talking about a self-contained Chabad house, whether it be in a building or in a storefront or in a hut, which becomes the mode and the operation of Jewishness and godliness, even though everything around there, right, is goyish, is not Jewish, is secular, and is idolatry, as you say. He's not talking about going into those places. That you would be right. That would be analogous to engaging and debating with the negativity. At the same time, there were exceptions that Rabbanim, not just Chabad Rabbanim, gave certain individuals for the purpose of saving a life to schlep them out. There were, but you're right. On the average, It's not that way. For example, I'm going to study the New Testament to be able to refute the Jews for Yoshka and things like that. That is not most from Jews avoida, because they're not. But are there individuals that we have? I forget the one in Eretz Yisrael. There's someone. Tovia Singer, the late Reb Manuel Shochat, Shlomo Sawalski from Detroit, who I knew. There were individuals who their purpose was they were cult busters and they were saving Jews from these situations. But overall, no, you're right. No one should be going there. You know what I'm saying? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about making a shul, a Chabad house, an Eish Torah center, whatever. It doesn't make a difference to the organization. Within a place where there are Jews, there are thousands of Jews. Maybe some of your kids, all of you kids or grandkids or future will end up going there for whatever reason. And they'll need a Pesach Seder. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to in Kamadu with 1,000 people to celebrate Pesach. That's very holy. We're not talking about that. So it's, you're missing Barsht and Lakshan, beats and Lakshan over here. You got to separate. You got to separate the Inyanim and focus on what the Baal Tanya is saying here. You know what I'm saying? He's saying here that when I daven, when you daven, and those thoughts come to me, he's not talking about us going, we shouldn't be going to places we shouldn't be. And if we're in a place, don't look where you're not supposed to. The other day, I was just a Shabbos. I was walking home in Borough Park, and a boy, a young man, a young adult, dressed with a nice suit and a tie, and he's looking down. And I pass him, and I say, Besimcha, tshuva besimcha. He looked like he's. I said, I'm saying, it's Elul. I know you, but Shabbos, Besimcha. What do you like? And I went on, and I moved, and he says, "Thank you, good Shabbos." But at the same time, if he was taught to walk that way in the shul, which I'm not going to go there, but if he was taught to walk that way in the street, excuse me, and he's following a script, and he wants to be like that, okay. This way, he doesn't see anything outside. But absolutely, I agree with you. When we are in a situation where, you have that to the right, left, so the best thing is not to be there, and if you need to be there, put blindfolders on, how you'll drive and walk, I don't know. But the Nakuda is, this is not what we're talking about here in Tanya. What time is it? Chevra, what time is it? Hillel.
It's 3:15.
Okay. Hillel, yes.
I just want to say that this chapter in particular, I think, is very applicable to the struggle with addictions and compulsions. And the Eitzah of the Baal HaTanya is very reminiscent of the language of the 12-step program at the end, which is the first step, that when a person recognizes that only a power greater than them can help restore them to sanity. The first step he's recommending here is like, okay, these are your kochos. You can push it away. When you reach the limits of your kochos, then you have to ask for help.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I hear you. I also find, Hillel, this chapter, this amazing thought, I call the spiritual schizophrenia. I mean, that's a play on the word. It's not a psychiatrist. I wrote my book called Tanya on Mental Health recently. And a psychiatrist who saw the book, we spoke, he says, that's not real schizophrenia. I said, I know it's not real schizophrenia. I'm just using the idea. What's the idea? The idea is, who are you? One day I'm in the shul with tefillin and davening and learning. And one day I'm full of narishkeit. So I have a split personality. So Dr. Rebbe says here, you would be right to feel this way if you had one soul. But if you have two souls, it's coming from two places. There's Yaakov and there's Esav. You have a Yaakov and Esav in you. And I think that's also an important thought. How that falls into the 12 steps, I don't know. But as far as Torah is concerned, as seen by Hasidus, this is a very revolutionary way of thinking. It's not a revolutionary way of thinking, because therefore I can continue being bad, and that's my nefesh abamis, and then I'll be good. It's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur coming in a week too, and I'll do my tshuva. No, then you're a fool. You're a hypocrite. We're talking about the struggles of the good and bad, and the addictions and non-addictions and all that. It's coming from two places. And when you become comfortable understanding that, then it's easier. It's not easy, but it's easier to divest yourself from these things. Chevra will continue tomorrow. Have a great day. Shalom. Zay gesund.